Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The JAYREELZ podcast.
Why don't you wait until July 1st to make an announcement? What a disgrace. He can rack up all these numbers in October, November, and December, but what really counts is let me see this in January.
The sports rebel without a pause, delivering fast-paced, jam-packed sports talk like no other.
Listen, I gotta call it as I see it. He is not a good player. I'm sick and tired of having to deal with the disappointment of this franchise. When does it stop? And yes, another winter that I can sleep in peace. Coming correct, directed in full effect. Let's get it.
This is the JAYREELZ podcast. Welcome aboard.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic, in excellent spirits. The sports world may start to quiet down a little bit, but you know you're going to hear my roar, whether it's in your earbuds, headphones, speakers, or beyond, because bringing you the latest and greatest of what's happening in the world of sports is what I do, as this is the JAYREELZ podcast with JAYREELZ. For my first timers, welcome aboard. And for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle, or even as early as this past Monday, I welcome you guys and gals back. And yes, there has been a bit of I don't want to say a complete silence, or when it comes to the sports universe, it being fully quiet. But let's face it, now that the storm of the Super Bowl is in our rearview mirror, now that an NFL season is put to rest, and as we walk out of that door and close it, we now look around to see what is happening as we try to go through either door number 1, 2, 3, with that being the NBA, NHL, baseball to a degree. If you want to get into the Olympics or college basketball, maybe there's more than 3 doors, but you get what I'm saying. And when you open them up, it's not a lot that's going on there. And although there are quite a bit to get into as far as certain topics that I want to hit up on, I get it at the games, although we have an NBA schedule this week, and I can talk about a couple of things, and I will get to talk about that when we go through the NBA segment. But let's face it, people, we are in a stretch right now. And especially once you get to about midnight tonight, between now and next Thursday at about, I'll say 7 p.m., it is going to be quiet as you could possibly have it for a sports universe or sports world where there is not much going on. Does the NBA All-Star Weekend do it for you? Does the Olympics, is that something that's on your radar? When it comes to yours truly, wait till I unpack that later on. There's no NHL. There's not going to be NBA. Obviously, we know football has exited stage left. And then we can talk about college basketball, which there are a few things to dabble and get into, which I will definitely do so. But let's call it as we see it. I know to my guy, Brent, north of the border in Ontario, who is a listener to the podcast, supporter, etc. Shout out to you, Brent. He said to me the other day, he goes, and I'm paraphrasing, not a chance that the sports world is in a dead zone. I think it is. And I understand there are little things that we could pick at, open for discussion as far as stuff that's happening off the field, off the ice, off the court, which I will certainly unpack because, yes, despite the fact that there may not be much going on or won't be a lot that's going to transpire between now and, let's say, Monday's podcast, but let's face it, this is a stretch between now and I'll say the opening of the NCAA tournament next month. And that Thursday, I know the playing games are Tuesday and Wednesday. To me, not so much. Obviously, you got to pay attention to it because you want to see who's going to advance to play in the tournament when you get to Thursday and Friday. But there isn't a lot shaking. There isn't a lot moving. And who knows? Maybe it'll surprise us. Even with the NFL free agency next month, I get it. We can look at that and see where players are going to go. But that's 2 or 3 days. And rumors, I get it. Aaron Rodgers, when is he going to retire? If he is going to retire. Right. There's always going to be something. But at the same time, it's not as if you're going to have night in, night out of a lot that's going on when it comes to games, because that's why obviously we watch sports. If it was all about gossip, if it was all about trade rumors, if it was all about things that are happening off the ice, this would be TMZ or hardwood, gridiron, diamond. This would be TMZ sports as opposed to a sports podcast that's going to get your fill on what's happening and what's going on in the toy department of life, as you know, I love to call it, called sports. So with that being said, I want to start off as we get into the Sports Dead Zone Part 1, from now to the tournament. And the Part 2 will come in the summertime. Obviously, no need to unpack that at this very moment. But what I do want to say is despite this slow period or this upcoming month or so, there's always going to be something for me to discuss. It's not like I'm going to close shop or, hey, I'll see you guys in the middle or latter part of March when we can really get into sports. No, because doing a show like I did the other day with the Super Bowl, and there were a lot of people that flooded into the live stream, which was great. But we understand that show anybody could do. It's shows like today. It'll be a show like Monday. Am I really going to talk about All-Star Weekend or the game there on Sunday night, NBC, which I know they're plugging it all over the place? Am I going to talk about the Olympics? I'm going to have to a certain extent. But there are going to be other things that I'm going to pick at, not nitpick, pick at, where I could say, oh, let's touch on this. So, oh, let's talk about that. Because the reason why we're here, people, is because we watch the games. We follow the games. We follow what's happening, what's going on. Because without the games, like I said, what do you have? Yeah, you got a bunch of rumors. You got a bunch of police blotter stuff. What's gone on with a former NFL first-round draft pick, Darren Lee. Ugh, what a mess that is. And that I'm not going to touch. That's for Lee to deal with. And I understand if it was a player of a bigger magnitude, when you look at someone like, dare I even say, Aaron Hernandez, which, of course, a lot of people are going to look at me and watch this video and be like, hey, aren't you Aaron Hernandez? No, I am not. But I understand that there are some similarities when it comes to the looks between he and the former Patriot tight end and yours truly. But here we go. And I'm going to start with the NFL because I'm going to segue all of the talk from what has happened here over the last few days and the NFL, as we could pretty much put to rest a little Super Bowl leftovers, if you will. I know they had the parade in Seattle there yesterday. I did not watch a lick of it. Nothing that was said, nothing to me I found appealing. And it's easy for me to say because I'm not a Seahawks fan, although I rooted for them in the game. But all we know is that they put the cherry on top with the parade. It looked like it was sunny based on a couple of the photos that I saw. But other than that, there wasn't anything over the top or outlandish. Oh, we're going to go back to back. Oh, this, oh, that. No, which is fine. It's great. Good for Seattle. Obviously, what happened with the baseball team there, blowing the 3-2 series lead, going back to Toronto, and them not getting to a Super Bowl. I guess this obviously kind of, I won't say puts it to rest, but it makes the city feel good knowing that they were able to get a champion in that city, knowing that the baseball team was that close. That's number one. As far as the rating of the Super Bowl, I believe it was the fourth highest rating of all time. Super Bowl halftime didn't get the rating. I believe it peaked at one point to 137 million. I don't know what that time frame from 8:15, 8:30, whatever it was. I mean, I'm not going to split hairs here, but I know that's been all the rage here in the last few days. One thing that I'm going to say about that is that the halftime, for all of the inflammatory comments that you've seen throughout the last, maybe not so much yesterday, but certainly the night of the Super Bowl, the day after, and even 2 days after, the NFL got what they wanted. Any publicity toward the NFL, good, bad, or indifferent, they're going to take bows, they're going to clap. And as much as I like to say here on the podcast, on the negative side, where Roger Goodell probably spit out his kale salad or his oatmeal croissant, whatever he has for breakfast, this whole halftime Bad Bunny Super Bowl thing, I believe if you go on social, people are still talking about it, where that's what he wants. And that's what they got. As if the NFL needs more publicity, which they don't. But even though it wasn't the highest rated or it was not the pinnacle of Super Bowl halftimes, to me, it's always going to be Prince. But it still has legs almost 4 days after the game. And you know the NFL, they're doing handstands right now. And that's what it's about. So for those who were positive about it and were negative about it, and still to this very second are talking about it, then guess what? That coffee, that tea, that smoothie, that juice, whatever Roger Goodell was drinking this morning, it is going down as smooth as it possibly can be. So, you know what? You could kill the NFL all you want for what they did, but they come out victorious. And you know me, anytime I get a chance to pounce on the NFL, you know I do so. And not because I have a vendetta or anything personal, but they do suck the oxygen out of the room. They just do when it comes to the sports landscape. As evidenced by their schedule, when it comes to a Christmas Day, when we all know it's the NBA, but the NFL takes over. When it comes to the playoff game on a Monday, I understand that schedule, but that's a situation where it just takes everything out. Just does. So that's pretty much with the Super Bowl stuff, because I could see, just based on some of the things that I jotted down here, I don't want to miss anything. But when you have that, and then next year's game, let's talk about this before we pivot to other things. The Super Bowl, which is going to be played in LA next year, Super Bowl 61 at SoFi Stadium, which they just played it in 2022. That was Bengals Rams. And of course, you know, Matthew Stafford coming back, knowing that the game is in his backyard. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons, if not the main reason, why he's coming back for another year under center for the Los Angeles Rams, the NFC runner-up. But two things. The game is going to be on ESPN. Think about that. The first time it's ever going to be outside of over-the-air TV. Now, I don't know if it's ESPN, ABC. I think it's going to be strictly ESPN based on what I read. And right now, they're going to do like a year's worth of Super Bowl. I guess the ESPN is like now going to plot and plan out the next year. So let me guess, they're going to have a pregame for the Super Bowl on the day of the NFL draft? I mean, I don't know, but they can have at it. We'll have to wait 60 days or 61 days until we get to that point. But the game is on there. But here's the other thing, which I'm going to find fascinating. If anybody wants to leave a comment, please do so. I'll get to the comments at the tail end of this podcast in the next hour. But the game, AFC, NFC, SoFi, 6:42 kickoff Eastern time, is going to be played on Valentine's Day. That's right. So my wife already apprised me and said, the game next year is on Valentine's Day. I want us to do something that is not football related. I mean, what am I supposed to say at that point? I'm not going to say, we're watching the Super Bowl, what have you. I still have a long time between now and then, but watch it be, with my luck, somehow, some way, whether they're the top seed in the AFC or the 7th seed in the AFC, and they either have a magic carpet ride and an unexpected one, or they have a bye and 2 games in their building, and they win those 2 games to get to a Super Bowl. Watch it be my luck that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be in the Super Bowl. What will I do at that point? I don't know. And thankfully, I don't have to worry about that until I get to that point. And that'd be a good problem to have if they do get to a Super Bowl, because then, I'm going to have to pull a Houdini act in order for me to watch that game from start to finish. So we shall see. But that's something to think about, guys, gals, everybody, partners in between. What are you going to do with your significant others when it comes to that day? Is it Super Bowl, or is it pay attention to your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, etc.? Just keep that in mind as we move it along. As far as other notes, speaking of the Rams, Rob Havenstein, the longtime offensive tackle, has retired 11 years. And I'm sure the Rams are probably going to do something, whether in free agency or through the draft, to bring in some offensive linemen to keep Matthew Stafford standing up straight. So that is a big loss. When you think of you think of Andrew Whitworth when he retired a few years ago. So now they're going to have to revamp that line to a point where you're going to have the current MVP and reigning MVP. Certainly he doesn't want to be looking over his shoulder every 5 seconds because, as we all know, he's not fleet of foot. But they have an entire offseason to mull that over and figure it out, which I'm sure they will. But Havenstein on to the next phase of his life. So congratulations to a great career and best of luck to him moving forward. And then you have the Giants, New York Football Giants. They bring in Brian Callahan, the former Tennessee Titan coach, to go along with Matt Nagy, the former offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, as well as the former head coach of the Bears. Now you got those two guys that will be in cahoots of the running the offense for the Giants to go along with John Harbaugh. So let's see how that unfolds to the Giant fan with Jackson Dart and Malik Neighbors coming back from a torn ACL and Cam Scatterboo from a shattered ankle. So things are looking up there on the other side of the river from where I'm at to see whether or not the Giants could at least take maybe not a big leap, but a significant step forward as far as getting out of these doldrums that they've had over the last half decade. I understand maybe more than that when you think about it. Going back to the Super Bowl, I mean, they had 2 playoff runs. One and done in the Ben McAdoo year when they went to Green Bay and got smoked. That was when the guys, Victor Cruz and who else was on there? Odell Beckham Jr., they go on the boat trip to where they went the day after the regular season prior to that game. And then obviously they crapped the bed in Green Bay. And then they did win a playoff game in Minnesota before losing to the Eagles. That was what now, 4 years ago? Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley winning in Minnesota. But they have that to deal with there as far as trying to get themselves back to respectability there with the G-men. So we'll see how that tandem goes once we get closer to training camp. And then yesterday, I see these comments from Joey Porter, the former Steeler linebacker. Did a podcast with Cam Hayward, who has, I believe I forgot the name of his podcast. And you would think I would know more about it only because he is a Steeler and I'm a Steeler fan, etc. But he had made a couple of comments towards James Harrison and Ben Roethlisberger. The one towards James Harrison, not too damning, where Ben Roethlisberger, yeah, straight out. Straight no chaser. James Harrison pretty much on his podcast with Joe Hayden had said some disparaging, maybe not disparaging too strong, but had said some comments about, you know what? He had said some comments about Mike Tomlin not having his back and being a liar, I believe. And I'm alleging that because I don't have that 100%. But I know that there was a disconnect in the 2017 year where Harrison was with the Steelers, then they let him go. Then he signed on with New England. That was the year that they could have met in an AFC Championship game where the Steelers lost to Jacksonville in that brutal playoff loss. And then they went on to a Super Bowl. Harrison was a member of the Patriots, played in the game in that loss to the Eagles. But Joey Porter came out to say, oh, wait a minute. How are you going to dog the guy that gave you the Debo nickname? I don't know if he gave him that name, but the guy that pretty much made you who you are as a player, was the Defensive Player of the Year under Tomlin's watch, obviously won a Super Bowl under Tomlin's watch. The first Super Bowl that he won in 2005 was under Bill Cowher, but Cowher cut him 3 times. And he was with the Ravens a couple times back and forth. And during the middle of that, I believe it was 2013, he went to Cincinnati for 1 year, James Harrison. So you got to throw that in the mix. But Porter made some sense about Harrison, about, hey, how are you going to say that about your coach when he pretty much made you the player that you are? But as far as Roethlisberger goes, that was damning because he came out to say he was a bad teammate, straight up. And there was a lot of things that we didn't say or certainly could have got after him, but because he was our quarterback, the leader of our team, and won a Super Bowl for Porter in 2005, that, hey, they're going to keep that in-house. But now had something to say about it. My thing is that, and we know Roethlisberger's checkered history early on in his career, which doesn't need to be talked about. But how I look at it is Roethlisberger going to retort to that? because there's been a lot of stuff about him early on in his career about how he behaved. We know what happened in Vegas, in Georgia, and the Sports Illustrated article, which was really, he just was an entitled brat. And I love Roethlisberger, the player. Love him. I mean, brought a lot of thrills. I can't say enough how much I enjoyed watching him play for my team and watched every big game that he played in. But was he a jerk? Maybe that is an understatement. And I'm curious to know if he's going to retort. I'm sure Roethlisberger may take the high road. He may say some things, whatever. That's his opinion. That's how he feels, whatever. My thing is, I know his offensive line who backed him up when we look at that Georgia incident, and I understand here I am kind of going there, but to me, I want to see what those guys got to say. And I understand maybe he and Porter never got along outside of their success there, especially in that year when they went to the Super Bowl. But it's interesting to see a player, ironically, former Steeler, talking to a current Steeler on a podcast about another Steeler who also has a platform. And I get all these athletes have these platforms, but interesting to see if there's going to be anything said with Roethlisberger after that, or from Roethlisberger towards Porter about that. So that's what I got with the NFL. And I may not have much about the NFL moving forward, considering now until the middle of March when the NFL season begins, and season being the free agency trade. Let's see, I'm going to pull that up right now. NFL new season begins. It's probably going to be March 16th, 17th. No, I don't want the date. Free agency. That is March. Nothing or nothing. All right. Maybe we'll get that for Monday's podcast, but we still got about a month to go before we even get to that. All right. Now let me turn my attention to the NBA. Let me lace up the high tops as we go through the hardwood. And NBA right now, as I mentioned, All-Star break forthcoming. You have 3 games tonight on the schedule. No games between now and next Thursday. You have the rookie game, I guess, or rookie sophomore. Do they even still do that? I don't know. Which you're not going to see Cooper Flagg as he's nursing an injury, and he's not going to play in a game tonight against the Lakers. So for those who are looking forward to maybe seeing the Mavericks go up against the Lakers, you're not going to see him. You're not going to see Luka, who's not going to play in the All-Star game there on Sunday, which is the format USA versus the world. So no Cooper Flagg, no Luka. If you're into the celebrity game, which I'm not, forget about it. Saturday, the skills competition, the three-point, the slam dunk. I know they had to recruit these players to perform in a slam dunk as of, I think, last week, which is a joke. So if you got to recruit players to be a part of your slam dunk competition literally a week and a half or 2 weeks prior to the game, that's all you need to know about the slam dunk competition. And although they've changed it over the years as far as the rules with the clock, as opposed to it being taking 100 dunks in order for you to get the dunk, which obviously just blows all the suspense. But I can't get wrapped up in it. And the game itself, I haven't watched an All-Star game from start to finish. I can't remember how long. And listen, I understand NBC and Peacock, they're going to plug it, but really, are they going to get people to watch this? First of all, it's at 5 o'clock on a Sunday where with the Olympics, it's not going to be in prime time. They may get a better rating than TNT because cable is different than regular over-the-air TV. But, I mean, who's watching that? Do they still have the rules with if it gets to a certain point of the game where they get the, I guess, the Kobe rule, like 24 points? To me, it's all gimmicky. Just have the players play hard. They should just roll the tapes of Kobe Bryant playing in an All-Star game, defending players in the middle of a second quarter. Everybody loves Kobe. Everybody knows about his mentality, etc. They should play clips of that because I am not watching an All-Star game, which is going to be a layup dunk line or a three-point shooting contest. It's boring. And I'm not trying to say that it has to be game 7 of an NBA final, but can we have some semblance of defense? That's why I can't watch. That's why I won't watch. And maybe, just maybe, for the hell of it, I'll say, all right, let me turn this on. And if I see, remember one year, Steph Curry, who's not playing in the game as well with an ankle, I believe it's an ankle or knee, where I believe it was Giannis who had the ball, and it was one-on-one, and Curry literally went to the ground as if he was going to sleep, where Giannis obviously breezed past him and went in for a dunk. I mean, I get it. It's entertainment. I get it. It's an exhibition. I understand all that. But do I need to resort myself to watching that? Might as well have me playing the game if they're going to let me get to the basket. And nobody's saying it has to be the 90s Knicks Bulls or Knicks Heat where they're going to have to hack them until they put them through the court. But no, I'm not the one. So that's going to be me with the All-Star break forthcoming. And speaking of physical play, I know I talked about this a little bit on Monday, but I haven't really expounded on it, where you had the suspensions go down based on the fight between Detroit and Charlotte, where Isaiah Stewart, coming off the bench, got 7 games. He should have got minimum 10 games in my eyes. In the NHL, if you jump over the bench during the middle of a scrum or a line brawl, that's automatic 10 games. They may have increased it since then, but I know you don't see a lot of players jumping off the bench, so 10 games. Why can't the NBA enforce that? So he gets 7 games. All right, fine, whatever. Where you saw Moussa Diabate, who was part of that fracas with Jalen Duren, and Duren started the whole thing by snuffing Diabate. Diabate gets 4 games. Miles Bridges gets 4 games because he continued to go after Duren. That's where Stewart came in, and then Duren only gets 2 games for his mush. And that's what you have there. And as far as the other, I don't think there were any suspensions with Julius Randle and Chris Dunn dating back to last week. And then I think on Saturday or Sunday, you had Naz Reid go after an Atlanta Hawk player. But brings you back to the 90s, the physicality. And I will say I miss that in the NBA. Because the NBA, that's where you had teams that didn't like each other, or even players that didn't like each other, that you knew that it was going to be a 15-round knockdown, drag down heavyweight fight. We saw that with Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson in the opening round of that series in 98. Or was it 97? No, I think it was 98. The 97-98 year. Or even that year before, the P.J. Brown, Charlie Ward, which precipitated Patrick Ewing to come off the bench where he got suspended and he couldn't play in Game 7. And I understand that was a generation ago. I get it that the players are built a lot differently from the standpoint of now it's all about fraternization. It's all about pounds. It's all about laughter. It's everybody's their friend now in the NBA. It's a fraternity, as you know. You're not going to have a player that's going to look at another team. It's like, I can't stand that team. Or I don't want to beat that team. I want to go through it and take his heart out of the chest. You don't have those type of players anymore. A la Kobe, as I mentioned just a short time ago. So, yes, as much as we could, a person like myself could be enamored about those days, those times, like, oh, the physicality or the ruggedness, even the hatred between the teams or even the players for that matter. Yeah, there's respect, but yeah, do not want to have that team going for dunks or walk in for layups. No blood, no foul. Yeah, that mentality is long gone in the sport. But you wonder the chippiness here that we saw recently, how that, and I don't think it's going to be any carryover, but could that carry over to more physical play, maybe more rivalries, maybe to an extent where, I'm going to see some spirit. I'm going to see some physicality. I'm going to see something in the sport where it's like, all right, I'm going to wrap my arms around and say, yeah, I'm going to look forward to Detroit playing Boston Detroit, Boston. You want to talk about physicality, and that's going back to the 80s. Bill Laimbeer and Larry Bird, or Laimbeer and Parrish. Parrish hitting Laimbeer with 2 shots and even get ejected. Again, that's an NBA that is light years away from us right now. But you got to call it like you see it. I like to see the physical play to the point where it doesn't get ugly. And that Detroit-Charlotte game barely was this close to getting ugly. Players running all over the court, running from the bench. I mean, thankfully they didn't get some mouths at the Palace, anything like that. But that's the last thing anybody wants to see in any sport. But you have that. And then the other issue that you have here too is teams that are tanking to avoid being outside of a lottery protected area. hence the Utah Jazz, where over the weekend, now I didn't talk about this on Monday's podcast because Saturday, I believe they were in Orlando, and then Monday in Miami. And in the game in Orlando, they actually had a 17-point lead. I wasn't paying to Jazz Magic. I'm sorry. But I didn't realize that the Jazz had a 17-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and they rested their starters. They rested Jaren Jackson Jr., they rested Lauri Markkanen. Like, what are we doing here? And a lot of that is going to be based on them being one of the top 8 worst records in the sport. And they want to have a bad record so they can avoid being outside of the top 8, because what that means is that the Oklahoma City Thunder gets their number 1 pick. But as we saw last year with the Dallas Mavericks, the Mavericks' odds of getting the number 1 pick overall is what, 1.9? And yes, there's going to be conspiracy theorists that's going to say, oh, well, because of the Luka trade, maybe the ping pong balls were in their favor because they ended up getting the number 1 pick overall, which ended up being Cooper Flagg, and therefore doesn't erase what happened there on February the 2nd in the early wee hours of the morning, where Luka Doncic got traded to the Lakers for Anthony Davis, who had been departed to Washington since. I mean, we could talk about that, but in all seriousness, it's a thing where the Utah Jazz, they could lose every game from here on out. And I understand if they're going to be in the top 8 or in that with the worst records, they're not going to fall after that. But how do we know that? The ping pong balls can be ugly. The ping pong balls, as we've seen, you can have the worst record in the sport and have 25% chance to get the first round pick or first overall pick, but you could fall out of the top 4. You could fall down to 6 or 7. And we've seen that. And I guess for Utah, they're going to try to do what they can to not fall out of 8. Well, as I like to say, karma does never forget an address. And karma is one that watched the Jazz continue to lose, and the same for the Wizards for that matter, because I believe they're in that same scenario. And the Wizards who beat Detroit last week, and then they played the Brooklyn Nets, and they didn't shoot up anybody. And as it is tonight, and I'll look at the schedule in a moment, but I believe there's a team, or maybe that was last night. I'll double check it. No, it was last night. I'll get to that in a moment. But don't they realize they're tempting fate by trying to tank these games? And what can the NBA do about it? They can't do anything. What are they going to do? They got to suit these players up? I guess they can, but these teams, they're going to protect their players with this load management garbage. You're not going to see that in any other sport. NFL, you're not going to see these players on load management. I get it's a game a week, but it's NHL players aren't going load management. You think Connor McDavid, when they come east and they're playing in New York, New Jersey, the Islanders and Rangers and Devils respectively, that, oh yeah, well, I'm going to play at the Garden, but I'm not going to play in New Jersey, so I'm going to save myself to play back in New York on Long Island at the UBS Arena. Nonsense. They're not built that way. And I don't want to hear, oh, the game and the speed of it, whatever. Yeah, there's some truth to that, but you know what? This is what you sign up for. Play 82 games. If you're healthy, you play. If you have a severe injury, I get it. Luka has a hamstring, you're not playing. Steph has an ankle, you're not playing. No, I have an ingrown toenail or a hangnail. And listen, I'm not trying to knock the NBA player. I'm not. But when does it stop? When you buy a ticket and you go to the arena where the team from out west is only going to come here one time, and Steph Curry may have played the night before in Philadelphia, and now he's going to play in Brooklyn. And, oh, because I played the night before, I'm not playing back-to-back. What? That's my point. So, that and the tanking, what do you do about it? I don't know. I know David Stern tried to do that years ago with the Greg Popovich and how he sat his players, especially during the primetime games, the games on TNT. And he was the founding father of load management. But it's a disgrace. And that's why the NBA, the regular season, you can't take them seriously. You wait to get to April, mid to latter part of April to watch the playoffs, but regular season, from one game to the next, you just don't know. And the team that did that last night was Indiana. Indiana, who played the Knicks on Tuesday and won. And then they played in Brooklyn last night. And I don't know if they won or lost. I think they actually lost last night. I'll double check that. NBA. But Indiana, they rested 8 of their players last night. 8. No, they actually won 115, 110. They sat Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nemhard, Pascal Siakam. And if you're resting 8 guys, and I get it, maybe, but then what are you doing with the rest of the team? You have to at least have 8 guys on the bench, and I guess they did that, and they still won the game. I could pull up the box score and break it down, but it's just a disgrace what they're doing. And my thing is that they went from playing in the Garden to go to Brooklyn. That was their last game before the break, where I'm sure a lot of those players on Indiana who are not on the All-Star team, they're going, I'm sure, to the Caribbean, wherever. Why can't they play in a game last night? So if you're a fan of the Indiana Pacers, maybe the 3 that are in the New York area, let's say they want to go, hey, my team's in town back-to-back. I'll go to the Garden at Brooklyn. I'll definitely get a ticket there because who's going to see the Nets? And then you go and everybody's sitting out. I mean, come on, make it make sense. It's not even just a joke, people. It's an embarrassment. It really is. And I don't know what to do to implement plans. It's crazy. It's almost like you got to force these players to play. The teams are going to protect their assets. And the Pacers aren't going anywhere this year. They're one of the worst records in the sport. So I want to hear about load management, especially when they're probably on planes leaving out of New York to go to the Bahamas, Cancun, well, who knows? It's pathetic. But anyway, I digress. Let me see. I'm going to get to any other NBA news and notes. Let's see where we're at. Tonight, here are your games. You have Milwaukee at OKC. You have 2 prime video games for those who are interested. Milwaukee at OKC, Dallas at LA. Again, no Luka, no Cooper Flag. Who knows if LeBron's going to play? I don't even think he's playing. So why even bother? Portland at Utah. That is your schedule for tonight. And obviously no schedule until you get to the weekend if you're into the All-Star stuff. Now, what I'll do is I won't get to the standings and all that. I can break that down. What I'm going to do is on Monday's podcast, I'll do a first half review or really a 2/3 review because a lot of the teams have played, 56, 57 games? About 54. Celtics have played 54. Knicks have played 55. So, yeah, you're almost at the 2/3 point of the season. So I'll do a pseudo 2/3 first half review. And then on next Thursday's podcast, where the season will resume, I'll do a second half crystal ball look as to what we could expect over the last little bit more than a third of a season as we now zoom, hopefully, through the rest of this regular season and get to April when the postseason will begin. And speaking of 2/3 reviews or looks, I'm going to lace up my skates and take a trip around the ice. As we go to the NHL, you know what? I'm going to put a pause on that for a second. So my apologies. I'm going to put a pause because I want to rewind and go college basketball because I can't forget about college basketball. I know you had the game the other night where Arizona lost their first game to Kansas and Darren Peterson didn't play. I know that was an issue because here's a guy that, depending on who you talk to, is the consensus number 1 pick of the NBA draft this coming June. And Peterson's played in 13 games this year. And yes, he has a lot of ability. And I've watched him in spurts. I haven't watched him fully, but now that what is there to watch, I'll be sure to have Kansas on my radar and I'll watch a lot of their games. But for Peterson to not play in a game and then they actually won makes you think, wait a second, could Kansas win without him? Now, I understand that's like a stupid hot take title. And I won't go as far as saying that the Jayhawks will win without Darren Peterson, but it does say something. And Peterson, I understand he was in the warm-ups and went to the layup line, but had flu-like symptoms and sat out. All right, the kid is sick. But could he have gutted out a little bit? Just a little? Just a tiny bit? It was against the number 1 team in the country. I could see if this was a game against Baylor or throw whatever team you want to put in there, Texas Tech. All right, fine. No problem. Oklahoma, you name it. But it was the number one team in the country coming into your building. And I understand. He wasn't feeling well for whatever the reason. And all right, JAYREELZ, who did you say he's feeling sick? That's like you calling out on a sick day. All right. I get it, but the number one team, I would have at least tried to give it a go. I understand it's not game 5 of the NBA Finals, a la Michael Jordan there against the Bulls. Against the Jazz as a member of the Bulls. But, I don't know, man. Darren Peterson, he's certainly going down the path of the NBA player in that regard. And I just don't want to pile on him, but, geez. Can we at least give a little bit of an effort? If he was healthy enough to get into the warm-up, he could say, Coach, I'll give you what I got. And if you gave him 5 minutes and he starts puking on the sidelines, whatever, all right, we get it. That's it. Go to the locker room. Maybe you'll come out in street clothes or whatever just to be a part of whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's me. But when we look at what else was going on, I know Michigan had a sweat-out a game last night against Northwestern where they were down double digits in the second half and they came back and they just ran past them standing still. And when we look at the top teams in the country, right now you have to say it's the following of these teams. Obviously, it's Michigan, it's Arizona. I understand they lost to North Carolina the other day, but you got to look at Duke. But here's the thing. We can look at Michigan, Arizona are locks. Houston is that team. Duke, those would be, obviously, if there was a bracket, who are all the 1 seeds? They're your 1 seeds. Of course, Duke would be in the East. Michigan, you would think Midwest. Out West, you're going to have Arizona. And South, you would think it's Houston. So I'm sure there's a team or two that would say, hey, what about us? What about UConn? What about Iowa State? Illinois, who's played well. To me, and UConn lost to St. John's there Friday. We talked about that briefly on the podcast Monday. And UConn's deserving. It could be part of that. But I think Arizona, Michigan, to me, are locks. You want to say even Houston to a certain extent. You could say that. I'm sure Iowa State, Cyclones, there are people going to say Iowa State probably belongs in those top 4. Duke is Duke. And I'll say this. I don't want them to be a 1 seed in the East because I'm sure, and we don't know how the bracket's going to play out, but they're going to try to find a way to get Duke there. And I understand Duke has lost in these last few years. I get it that they went to a Final Four there, in 2022, and they lost to North Carolina. And they have not done well since then, or at least have not done well from the standpoint they haven't gone back to a Final Four. But I think right now college basketball, unlike years past, it's not as wide open as, and that's just the overview, it's not as wide open as you think. I think this is the 1 year where the cream may rise to the top, where you may get a scenario of 2, possibly 3 teams that are 1 seeds get to a Final Four. Possibly. I could see 2, and chances are you're never going to get all 4 1 seeds. That's very rare. But unlike the last few years, maybe the last year notwithstanding, think about this. When UConn won their first title, not first ever, the first title 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, under Danny Hurley, you had Miami in the Final Four. You had FIU in the Final Four. You had San Diego State in the Final Four, and UConn. And UConn, I believe, what were they, a 4 seed? And the others were like 5s and 9s. And 9 seeds. It was, I think I said FIU. I think it was FAU, wasn't it? FIU. I think it was FAU. I know I'm getting my numbers and letters all mixed up. When they made it to a Final Four, it was FAU. when they made it to the Final Four, I mean, that was as wide open as you could possibly get. Because how else are you even going to remotely think that this year, all of a sudden, it's just going to be upended to where you're going to see a bunch of 4s, 5s, 6s, and 9s make it into the Final Four. This year, I'm not going to say it's going to be as predictable, but I will say that it is going to be, I would think, maybe not chalk, but as close to chalk as you're going to have this year than you're going to have in years past. Now, obviously, an injury could crop up. That could change the whole complexion of it. But I think this year it is not going to be as wide open as we've seen in years past. And we'll talk more college basketball, of course, as we move it along here. We got to Monday's podcast, et cetera, and beyond. All right, now I'm going to turn my attention. I know before I said I laced up the skates, go around the ice real quick, because the NHL, as we all know, because of the Olympics, obviously on hold. You're not going to get games until 2 weeks from last night. But the NHL, and I'll be brief with this, people. NHL right now, as we look at it, I'm just going to go surprises, disappointments from that standpoint. I mean, right off the bat, the biggest disappointment, I think, in the league, you could give them a break because of their run here, but the Panthers are in last place. Nobody expected that. Now, I picked them as an under this year. They were 105.5. I said, there's no way they're going to win. They're going to come anywhere close to that. In fact, last year, they fell under 100 points. So, to me, that was a layup. Now, the other big disappointment is Toronto. I understand they had a little bit of a personnel change shift. They are right above them in the Atlantic when it comes to the standings. And who knows how those two teams are going to fare from when the season resumes to the end of the year. Now, that Monday's podcast, which would be the 23rd, I'll do a little second half overview. Tell you what I think, what's going to happen here as we get into the final third of the NHL season. But those have been two of the major disappointments. You could say the Devils to a certain extent. I picked the Devils to go to the Cup final. I wanted to be different. I mean, it could have been easy for me to say, oh, I'm going to pick Tampa or Carolina. I didn't want to go that route. I did pick the Devils. And out west, I picked Dallas. So that was my Stanley Cup final for those who are curious. I didn't pick Colorado. I didn't pick Vegas or Edmonton for that matter. But as far as disappointments, I know Winnipeg lost a lot of players. They've been a disappointment. They were the President's Trophy winner last year, and they are next to last in the Central. But as far as your surprises this year, I think the one that jumps out right away, and I know that they had a decent year last year. I got to see them perform better in the postseason because they've usually been one and done. Minnesota Wild have really come on here, and they played very well. And I know they made the trade there with Quinn Hughes in the early part of the year to bring the defenseman there, which has been a big lift. But I look at them. You got to look at the Sabres as a big-time surprise. They finally may make the playoffs for the first time in over a decade and a half. I can't say the Red Wings or the Canadians because they were hanging around the playoff picture last year before they fell off. Tampa's played well, but I don't want to say that they were a big surprise. Can I say the Islanders to a certain extent? I didn't expect them to play this well, and I know Matthew Schaefer, the number one overall pick, is giving him a shot in the arm. I get that, and Ilya Sorokin has played well as their backup too, David Rittich. I got to give him credit. Caps have taken a step back. They had a top seed in the East last year, and now they're muddled in the outside looking in as far as the wild card goes. But the NHL, similar to the NBA, it's a marathon, and it is a bit of a slog. And the games are going to be in and out of the clouds. I don't care, even if you're a dyed-in-the-wool hockey fan. You just want to get to April, or hopefully you'll get some drama at the end of the year where teams are going to jockey to try to get into the playoffs, whether it's via wild card, whether it's the 2-3s in each of the division, if they're that close, a la Dallas and Minnesota. Obviously, if you get the 2 seed, you get the home ice in that round. So there could be a lot of different permutations heading down the stretch to where, I'll be all over it. I'll be on top of it. But I get it. The NHL is not for everybody. A lot of people, the good sports fan, they'll wait for the playoffs to see what's going to happen then. But day in, day out, similar to the NBA, because come on, I get it. There are probably more basketball fans than hockey fans. But even still, tonight, I get it. You can be dying to wool. But are you really going to watch the Mavs and Lakers? Or even Bucks and OKC? All right, you're going to watch OKC. You're going to watch the defending champ. Fine. Bucks, no Giannis. I mean, listen. Would I turn it on as a sports fan? Yeah, I turn it on. But am I watching every basket? Am I watching every minute? No, I'm not. Come on. You got to pick and choose your battles. Even if I was single, no one around, I would turn it on. But I'm not going to be glued to the set. Oh, wait, 8 o'clock? Bucks Thunder, let's go. And I'm watching every basket. I'm watching. No, I can't. Yeah, I'd have to get into something else. Would I have it on as background noise or whatever? Yeah, I would. I would. But even with that not being the case, I'm not single. But even with that being the case, even if I had it on the background, and my wife, if I said, listen, I want to watch Bucks Thunder, after a while, I'll probably be nodding off. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you, people. That's just how it is. That's how it goes when it comes to the sports landscape. And that's what I talked about at the very beginning when it comes to this dead zone that we're in. And I get it. People can say, well, damn, JAYREELZ, you can't be that much of a sports kook if you're not going to be outside. And am I supposed to watch every game that's going on? I guess I could, but if you're going to ask me Bucks Thunder, now if it was Lakers Celtics, I mean, come on, people. Or if it was OKC Celtics, or let's say it was OKC Knicks, or Denver and throwing a team. Yeah, let's say if it was Denver and Cleveland. I know they just played not too long ago. Yeah, all right, fine. If Giannis was playing, all right, I'd like to see. He's not in a game. Why bother? That's my point. And especially if you're not going to have no Cooper Flag or no Luka, LeBron. I mean, really? Why even bother tuning in? So let me see. That's your NBA, people, and your college basketball for that matter, and even your NHL. I went back to the NBA. I have a full circle here. Yeah, so that's your NHL. I'll pick up on more of the NBA first half or first two-thirds there on Monday. A couple other things before I sign off. Well, I won't sign off completely because I'll get your comments after going through the sports landscape. The Olympics. I'm sorry, people. I have not tuned in. I have not watched. I really do not have any interest. And I understand that there's some stars there. Obviously, Ilya Malinin, skating. Michaela Schifrin. Obviously, Lindsey Vonn, which we're not going to see, understood. Chloe Kim, if you're into the snowboarding. But I just, not even the hockey. And I know Slovenia beat Finland yesterday, which was an upset. But I'm sorry. And the same can be said for the Summer Olympics. Now, I'm a little bit more gravitated to the Summer Olympics because I think that there may be more stars in the Summer Olympics, especially when you look over time. When you even go back to the days, I mean, you want to go Jesse Owens? I mean, you could do that. But if you're going back to the 68 Olympics in Mexico, John Carlos, the whole, and Tommy Smith, is that his name? Tommy Smith? I believe it's his name. With the fist raising in the air. You want to go back to even Bruce Jenner. You want to go back Mark Spitz in 72. Bruce Jenner, 76 in Montreal. I mean, listen, Edwin Moses, Carl Lewis, Mary Lou Retton, Mary Decker Slaney, Michael Johnson, Usain Bolt. Forget about the basketball teams. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, there's a lot. Michael Phelps, obviously. There's a lot more, I think, with the Summer Olympics than the winter. Because really, when I think back, please, I'm not even talking Nadia Comaneci. I mean, please, it's on and on and on. Kerry Strug, Simone Biles. The Summer Games attract a lot more of the stars than in the winter. Because I can go to the Winter Olympics, I can think of, off the top of my head, Eric Heiden, Bodie Miller. Bodie Miller, was he great in the Olympics? I don't think he was. He may have won some medals and a couple of goals, but the guy wasn't cleaning house when it comes to winning medals. And yes, I understand you had Dorothy Hamill and Peggy Fleming, back that was 68 as well. And Dorothy Hamill, I believe, was 76. We know about the U.S. men's ice hockey team in 80. I mean, they need no introduction. But you don't really have that, that oomph when it comes to the Winter Olympics. I mean, what, you want to talk about Tanya Harding and what happened there? Nancy Kerrigan. I mean, obviously that's more infamous than famous. I was talking about it even with the wife a few nights ago, where Debbie Thomas in the 88 Olympics, how she was supposed to clean house and clean up with all the golds, and she spit the bit. And Katarina Witt was the one that won all the medals that year. And obviously that was a bad look there for the Americans when it came to figure skating. And I understand what you're at, Christy Yamaguchi, but I hate to say it, the Olympians aren't as decorated in the Winter Olympics than they are in the summer. And even the Summer Olympics, I'm not following that to the T. 2 years ago, was I on top of that when the games were, where are they? In South Korea, I think they were. In Seoul, if I'm not mistaken, they weren't even South Korea. Listen, I wasn't on top of that. I couldn't even tell you track and field, the long jumps, any of that. At least I was not on top of it. And that's just me. And it's not trying to be unpatriotic or, no. It's just, it doesn't do it for me. And I understand the personality is going to attract when you see Usain Bolt and you're like, oh, yeah, I don't want to watch him. Or many moons ago with Carl Lewis and what he did in the 84 Olympics, as well as Edwin Moses. Even someone like Jackie Joyner Kersey is another one. But even still, I think back on those Olympics, and it's not like I was glued to the set or I was like, oh, wait, what time is that? Oh, I got to run home and watch this. Just wasn't. And I don't know, unless something transpires here over the next week and a half that I'll be gravitated or at least will pique my interest, I can't see myself watching it. And even the hockey for that matter. I know the hockey final is Sunday. I think it's at 8:30 in the morning because it'll be 2 o'clock in Torino. Or no, in Milano. I said Torino. In Milano and the other city that is also hosting. Look, and I said Torino. I said, bad job by me. But yeah, the Olympics, I don't know, people. If I'm going to talk about it, then you know something that's all of a sudden struck a nerve. Other than that, I don't know if I'm going to follow or watch. And that's just the cold hard truth. All right, now let me turn my attention and wrap up here with the baseball, with the sports. Now, if you didn't know what the hamate bone was, which is right here if you're watching on YouTube and, of course, Spotify, the replay, that's your hamate bone. It's right above. It's supposed to be like that hook to, I guess it's a hinge or that bone that's right there between the wrist and the hand. Is that going to be the new Achilles that we've seen in the NBA, whether it's Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard? Because now we've seen this recent rash of hamate bone injuries to Corbin Carroll, the outfielder of the Arizona Diamondbacks, to Jackson Holliday, the infielder on the Baltimore Orioles. And, of course, it wouldn't be Met-like if a Met wasn't involved, and that'd be Francisco Lindor. All three of those guys are getting surgery. I believe Lindor is getting surgery tomorrow. Jackson Holliday, I believe, is getting actually a surgery. It could be as we speak. But, yeah, that injury, for whatever the reason, all of a sudden has been a popular one. I know Francisco Alvarez, the catcher on the Mets, had it last year. Giancarlo Stanton had it many years ago, and that was the year he was raking and could have been in the running for an MVP. That's not the year he got hit, where he got hit by the pitch by Mike Fiers, when he was with the Brewers, and he was second in a runner-up to Clayton Kershaw. That was in 2014, I believe. But I believe it was a couple of years after that. Maybe it's 2015 or 16 where he had a tremendous start to a season, but then he had that injury in late June and didn't come back until September. Well, for whatever the reason, that injury is now all the rage in baseball. So it's a 6-week injury David Stearns and even the manager, Carlos Mendoza, is high in the sky thinking that, oh, yeah, with his work ethic, et cetera, I think he's going to be back by opening day, which I said at the top is 6 weeks from today. We shall see, because he's not going to have any spring training. He's not going to be able to swing a bat until God knows when. And what? All of a sudden, he's going to be ice cold, rusty, without any baseball activity because of his wrist. And then now he's going to be penciled in the opening day lineup without taking, whether in simulated batting practice or on a backfield somewhere in a simulation game where he could at least mimic the speed of a regular game, that he's just going to come out cold and be in the starting lineup there opening day against, of all people, Paul Skeens. I don't see it happening. He's going to have some spring training, some game action to where he's going to have to build that sucker up to speed, and then he can take it from there. Because other than that, I can't expect him to be in the lineup 6 weeks after or however long it takes to heal, because these guys, they're saying Jackson Holiday and even Corbin Carroll, they're not going to even start the regular season with the team. So, and I understand it's Arizona, it's Baltimore. And even though Arizona made it to a World Series in the last few years, but Lindor, unless he has magical healing powers that doesn't involve any performance-enhancing drugs, and I'm not trying to say he is, that's not alleged or anything, but we know the speed of recovery, sometimes there's certain things you could take, you could use. As long as it's not on the list, he should be all right. And again, I'm not implying that Francisco Lindor does that. Although he is 32 years of age, still back end of his prime, but let's put it out there. But yeah, we shall see when it comes to those injuries. And obviously, pitchers and catchers reporting yesterday, which is great. Juan Soto, if you've heard, I'm sure by now, is going to play left field for the Mets this year. And I believe that was more through him than through the manager or the team itself, which is a good thing because you want to get him away from right field. He did play left field in the early part and beginning part of his career in Washington, and I believe a little bit in San Diego. And I think he's actually going to play left field for the Dominican team when it comes to the World Baseball Classic. So props to him, and props to him for doing that. And maybe by moving to left field, he knows that he's not going to be exposed out there in right field because, yeah, with the way the Citi Field, the fence juts in a little bit, balls carry him certain ways. Obviously, right field, you want to have your best outfielder play there. I mean, your best outfielder is in center field where you could cover a lot of ground. Understood. But right field is a position where you got to be on your P's and Q's out there. Left field, a lot of balls are going to hit your way. Don't get me wrong. But if you want to try to stick an outfielder somewhere, you don't want to put him in right field. You want to put him more so in left field. So let's see how that works. As the Met fans, like yours truly, no agita just yet. I'm not going to go as far as saying that, oh boy, if there's a sign of things to come. No gloom and doom. Let's not have that type of juju, Met fans, for those who are out there thinking that way. Let's just get to March 26th, opening day, when the Pirates come to town, and see how the season shakes down. And obviously we'll have plenty of time to talk about that between now and then. So you definitely have to stay tuned for that. But that's what you have with the baseball. There isn't anything else I think I could add there. And if there's any other news in sports that I'll see here before, I'll take the comments, questions, etc. momentarily. Oh, yeah, I didn't talk about that. Chris Bassett signed 1 year with the Orioles, $18.5 million. That's a good pickup. I think Bassett's a very good pitcher. So good signing by them. And Justin Verlander also signed, goes back home to Detroit. Surprised he signed for that much, $13.5 million. He's 43 years of age. And listen, I can see if he got $10 million. And listen, you can say, oh, what's $3 million? But, and we know the Tigers, they're thinking more Tarek Skubal, but think about it, their rotation pretty decent between Skubal, Valdez, Verlander, whatever he could get from you, whatever he could give you. I don't know if whatever Jack Flaherty has, Jackson Jobe, if he's coming back from Tommy John. So, we'll see. Excuse me. And then, was there another signing that I missed? Let's see. Verlander, Bassett. Oh, and yeah, Miles Mikolas signed with the Nationals, former Cardinal. He signed there. And I see Max Muncy agreed to a one-year deal, $10 million. As, you know, the Dodgers gunning for a three-peat, which we have not seen since the 98 through 2000 Yankees. Yep. The LA Dodgers, as we all know, the team, obviously the beat. Oh, look at this, as I just see this before I move on to other things. So Jaren Jackson, who the Jazz just acquired in a deal from the Memphis Grizzlies, is going to have surgery because of a growth in his left knee and is going to miss the remainder of the year. Listen, that's a tough break. I'm not going to go as far as saying, oh, is this set up for Utah to fail even more, considering what I talked about, I don't know, half hour ago when it comes to the tanking of these NBA teams? Obviously, he passed the physical, so you don't want to say, oh, is he damaged goods in Memphis before he got shipped to Utah? Can't say that, because that would have been a thing where if he didn't pass the physical, the trade would have been null and void. But yeah, now he's done because of a growth in his what? Growth in his left knee. The growth is a pigmented villonodular synovitis. Say that 3 times. Pigmented villonodular, yeah, whatever. A PVNS. How about that? Was discovered in an MRI during a physical after he was traded to the Jazz. Wow. So not for nothing, I'm sure they did a physical, sends an MRI, trade goes through. Now he gets to be a member of the team, and then they discover that he has this condition in his, or this growth in his knee, where they have to shut him down the rest of the year. Something smells fishy, but you know what? That is Utah's problem. Because I understand they're not going to do MRIs. They're going to exchange medical files, reports, etc. And I'm sure they're going to do the regular physical, whether Jaren Jackson was doing some exercises and he had to gut through it or had to mask a grimace, which would be hard to do on his face. But yeah, if I'm Utah, I'm not happy. But then again, maybe they are happy because they know they could tank and continue to lose these games. I don't know. All right, let's get to the comments, people. What do you got? Start from the very top. Bio, my man. Fishing Angel, good afternoon to you. J-Rod. The Michigan comeback win, yes. Look at that, down 16 and a 28-point turnaround wins that game. Val B, my usual suspects in the room. I love it. Fishing Angel, I knew Michigan was going to win because they're the type of team that never gives up. No, they got a lot of talent. One thing I heard about them, though, and J-Rock could attest, that they don't really have three-point shooting. I know they have a few players that can shoot threes, but they don't have like the one guy that you know is going to go on a heater that, hey, let's just give this ball to this guy and he'll get us back in the game or take the game over. I love it. Everybody's saying hello. All right, let's see. I don't care. No sports during the summer. Could care less. I'm fishing all the time. Oh, I hear that. So it's nice about the time fishes. Right. Segue right into it. And listen, the name Fishing Angel says it all right there. Can't wait for Saturday. Who are they playing Saturday, Jay? Maybe that's why I started to get cabin fever. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Too cold to fish. Oh, I can only imagine. Sitting out there. Oof. Trying to switch to 8 minutes left in the game. Bad time for Super Bowls on Prime Netflix. Oh, God. Yeah, that's coming. Yeah. Oh, could you imagine? A Steelers-Lions Super Bowl, and the game is in L.A. It'll be in Bio's backyard. That would be our luck. I mean, listen, I have to work something out. I don't know, but Reed, I don't know if you're still with us. Reed, I appreciate you. Who's my NBA MVP so far? Well, I know Jaylen Brown's had a monster year, man. I think he'll be in the top 5. I know Luka leads in points, but he's been hurt a lot. Yeah. Cade Cunningham. I like him too. He's definitely going to be in the top 5. He may be even top 3. Yeah. If I had to guess for MVP right now, my vote, and let me see his numbers because that's important. I'd have to say Cade Cunningham. It's SGA. I know he's having a big year, and I know what you call it, Nikola Jokic. I mean, the guy is always a perennial MVP candidate. But my thing is that it depends on how these teams play down the stretch. Because let's say Denver, they get to a 2 seed, but Nikola is on a heater. And then it's a thing where he's going to get a lot of traction to win an MVP. Oh, let's 25, 9, and almost 6 a game. And those are excellent numbers. And he had the top record in the East. In fact, let me see. Is their record equivalent? No, they're actually, interesting. They have 2 games in hand on Oklahoma City for the best record. And really, they're just a game back. 40-13 on Detroit. Thunder are 42-13. Yeah, I would say, and what is Shea averaging? 31-8, 6'4". I mean, Shea's going to get votes too. Yeah, listen, I don't know if Cunningham's going to win. I mean, they're going to be in first place the whole year. They're not going to face any pressure as far as regular season. I don't know. I would probably say, I'd like to be different. I'd like to say Cade Cunningham, but I would think if my head was on a chopping block, it's probably going to be SGA or Nikola Jokic. And imagine if Jokic wins again, that'd be 4 in 5 years, which is nuts. Men's hockey 310. Oh, really? Who are they playing? I don't even know. Goes to show you. I know bio. Yeah, that is just crazy. Just talking about that a couple of minutes ago, as you heard. Final Four is close to being this year, Michigan. Oh! Wait, Final Four basketball, because they're playing in Indianapolis. Isn't that what a Final Four is? Yes, FAU. I know I said FAU and I said FIU. I said, no, wait a second. And I had to double check that. 100%. Canada upon Czechia. Val's guy, Macklin Celebrini, scored a goal. Not a fan of Canada. Bad experience, is my opinion. Canada's loaded, though, with their players. Mitch Marner, all right. No, that's it. That's it, Val. All good. Val be official lot. All right, let's see. Just J-Rod. Yes. Congratulations to. Oh, all right. Good for that. The Giant player got married. I found a new energy drink I like. It's cotton candy Alania. Yeah, I've heard of that drink. Is it Alania? Yeah, Alania, right? It's yummy. It has other natural flavors. J-Rod, I remember you posted a drink. You sent me something like that. Yeah. Is that the Alani new drink energies? Interesting. American Pickers? All right, let's see. Not the same without Frank, but still decent show. All right. Yeah, I haven't watched, so I wouldn't know. Yes, Val, thank you. I know I'm late to the game because obviously I was in my stream of consciousness talking about the sports, and next thing you know, I know you guys are all on top of it. So, yes, I know J-Rod was ecstatic about that. And swap people invasion of serpents. Ooh. That sounds interesting. Swamp Dam typo. Yes, Muncie, Bio. I'm sure you feel good about that. Bio, the whole gang is together. An hour and 3 minutes so far without taking a comment. An hour and 3. Well, it's funny because on Monday I went through without taking a comment. So that's why, because I figured I'd do my podcast and then get to the comments. And then, I'll edit it along the way. But, yeah, Monday I did the same thing. This has to be, it may be a record because Monday I think it was a little bit less than that. Fishing Angel laughing at that. 13 medals, Team USA, 15. Now, are those medals overall? Those all gold? I'm curious. Toppers. Hope you're still here. As if they don't have enough money. Yeah, that's and the funny thing is that this will be the first time, not only will the Super Bowl be on Valentine's Day, but the next day is President's Day, which means a lot of people will be off. Yeah, listen, I'll worry about it then. I'm not going to get and that's right, Michigan and UCLA. So you got a little bio versus J-Rod there on Saturday. Knowing Italy lead in total medals so far. Oh, okay. Yes, Russia and US. Yep, absolutely. What is this? Yes, well, that is a given, Val. No North Korea. Latvia. Oh, all right. Yeah, it should be that's where what's it called from. Latvia. Kristaps Porzingis. Nope, he is not healthy. You're right about that, Val. Just joking. No, of course. No, I got it, guys. All right, I think I'm caught up on all the comments. But yeah, this weekend, obviously, there's not much to watch. It's just going to be Olympics, college basketball. I mean, that's it. And I don't even know if I want to watch the Olympics. Oh, Reed, all right. So you think Jalen and then Cade Cunningham. You know what? If I had to choose between the two, and I know J-Rod's going to think, he's going to say, you just said Cade Cunningham a minute ago. But if you can ask me between the two, I'd have to say Jaylen Brown. I don't know if they're going to give it to him, though. Yeah, I know he's averaging 30. Let's go. He's averaging 37. Hold on, Jay Brown's stats. He may be slightly below 30. Let's see. No, it's not it. There you go. He's currently averaging. Well, he shot the most field goals this year. And he's made the most field goal attempts. So he's got some black type. Wait, where is this points? Hey, get this out of here. 29.3. Okay. Listen, there's one guy you have to admit. Jaylen Brown, 2 years ago, prior to the year they won the championship, got his extension. 5 years, $304 million, obviously the most in NBA history at the time. And that he's earned every dime. How many times the other way where they get the big money and then that's it? They fold their tents and go home. Jaylen Brown he's been fantastic. Yeah, and that was at 22-23. He was, second team All-NBA. He's probably going to be second team All-NBA this year. All right. Yeah, so that's what I got with the Jaylen Brown NBA. Yes, Toppers, what do you got? Question. All-Star Week, I got Bobby Portis on a three-point con. I didn't even know he was performing in it. All right. Yeah, Jace Richardson I did see. NBA All-Star Weekend, too many injuries, Steph. Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, that's rough when you get all those injuries. Yeah, Toppers, what do you got? Yeah, let's see. Who's in a three-point contest? Well, I know Damian Lillard, which that was a surprise. I mean, the guy hasn't played. He's coming off that Achilles, and he's still in it. Let me see. Devin Booker, Colin Kneppel. If I had to guess who's going to win the three-point contest, well, you're going to say Bobby Portis Jr. All right, I like that pick. Because it's different. Because it's easy to say, oh, it's going to be Lillard. It's going to be Devin Booker. It's going to be this guy, that guy. Yeah, I don't know who I go with. Tyrese Maxey. He's not. I don't think of him as a three-point shooter. Concanepo. Yeah, I don't know. If I had to take a guess who I think's going to win, damn, where are my glasses? I know, that's the thing. I'm over here, like, reading this or trying to look at this. Norman Powell? Nah. I don't know why Devin Booker's name just jumps out at me. I don't think he's won one, but all right, let me see. Let's go back to the comments. All right, I get to read J-Rod Topper. Pats won, Broncos. Well, Denver, the reason why is Denver, they played the NFC East. They won in Philly. The Giants had that crazy comeback. All right, I know the Giants and Washington this year, not good. Or Giants and, Cowboys and Commanders, not good. And they also play the AFC West, which I understand Mahomes was hurt the latter part of the year. Yeah, no, I thought that schedule was tougher. And why don't they say about Denver getting the 1 seed? Yeah, no. I thought the Broncos, let me look them up fully. Schedule. Yeah, I thought the schedule was tougher. All right, no, is this yeah. All right, Tennessee. I played the Colts when the Colts were good. Week 2. Lost to the Chargers. Cincinnati. Yep, Philadelphia. The Jets. Giants. Cowboys, Texans, Raiders, Chiefs. No thanks. And there you have it. Yeah, no, their schedule was a lot tougher in my eyes. I don't know if you feel the same way, Toppers. What do we got here? Reed, it's crazy. Tatum and Brown both have. I know, it's nuts. But then everybody else on the team is barely getting paid because they have that second apron. They don't want to go past that. Let me think. Yeah, no, they don't want to go past that. So that's the situation with you can have those 2 players on your team, but everybody else, I mean, think about it. When you look at the rest of the team, Peyton Pritchard, I mean, I know he re-upped on a contract, but it's not as if he's getting paid a fortune. You know, the Jordan Walsh of the world, the Hugo Gonzalez's, the Neemias Keitas, the guys like that. And that's what you have to do if you're going to pay those 2 guys that amount of money. The rest of the team is literally going to be scraps. Only all-star game that matters anymore is baseball. Yep. Yeah, I guess. No, they stopped doing that, J-Rod. There's no they stopped doing the home field advantage thing. So, right, whomever wins the all-star team, all-star game, National American, they don't get the home field. Yeah, Jace Richardson's brothers in college. Yep. He's got good genes. That's all you could say. And not one. Yeah. And not one. Yeah, I mean, the Patriots, as you know, their schedule was a cakewalk. Oh, so he did one in 2018? Yeah, I was not aware of that. Because, again, I'm not on top of it. I'm not following it. All right, but the Pats. Yeah. You're right. It's not, I mean, listen, they play who they play. You can't, I understand you can't look at it that way. I mean, it really would have made a statement if they would have won that game, or at least been in the game against Seattle. But unfortunately, people are going to look at it that way. Oh, how about this, Toppers? I don't know what baseball team you root for. And you know me, anytime I can tweak the Yankees, I can. 2 years ago, when they went to a World Series, who do they play to get to the Fall Classic. They played the Royals and they played the Guardians. How do those series work out? I mean, the Yankees just toyed around with both Kansas City and Cleveland. And then when they played the big boys on the block, we saw what happened there. So I came out even then. I said, oh, look at this cakewalk to a World Series. What a joke. And the Yankee fans getting at me. Oh, well, you can only play what we play. And I'm telling you, you guys are going to get buried in the World Series. Oh, you don't know that. What happened? Lost in 5. Oh, Toppers, you're a Yankee fan too. So let me ask you this. So what did you think about the Yankees run in 2024? Was that an easy road, or was that one that's like, hey, you only play the teams in front of you? And if you say that, that's fine. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to be like, no. But I'm just curious because to me, this is both the same situation. Yeah, it's not their fault who they play. I understand that. But yeah, there's always going to be that one team that made it in, that may have had a hot first game, but then after that, right in the toilet. I ran out of water. It is H2O, people. Same glass of water. Fishing Angel, you leaving us? You too, Fishing Angel. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And, of course, the hubby. Toppers, it's not their fault who they play. No, it isn't. No, I agree. It is not. But I'll say this, because I know if it was my team, and here's another great case in point. I'll tell you. I understand it had best record in the sport that year. I understand that they were the consensus favorite going into that postseason, but I'm a big Celtic fan. And who they beat along the way? They beat Miami Heat in the first round. No Jimmy Butler. More than likely they would have beat him, but again, Jimmy Butler. Second round, no Jarrett Atway. Yeah, no Jarrett Allen and no Donovan Mitchell, I believe, in the last 2 games of that series. So would the Cavs, would they beaten the Celtics that year? Probably not, but them not having those 2 guys obviously were critical. In the conference final, Tyrese Halliburton, I believe, had a hamstring issue where he didn't play in the final 2 games. Celtics sweep the Pacers. Again, easy road. And who do they play in the final? They didn't play Denver. They didn't play the Lakers. They didn't play OKC. They played the Dallas Mavericks, or Minnesota for that matter. They played the Mavericks. Did they earn the right to get there? Absolutely. The tandem of Kyrie and Luka certainly propelled them into that. No problem. Can people say to me you had an easy road to winning a championship? I have to admit, yes. It's not as if they had a gauntlet to get to and then win a final. So therefore, right, would they have won all those series even if they were fully healthy? Obviously, we'll never know. But I would think in my heart of hearts and my gut, yeah, they would have won. Without question. But when you got guys out and you're able to look at the landscape and say, oh, wow, this is a pretty easy road, you got to call it like you see it. Toppers, thank you. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the comments. Thank you so much. But I hear you. Only play the teams in front of you. I understand. I can't knock that logic because it is the truth. I cannot. What else do we have, people? Anything else before I bid adieu? Look at that. I may not even get to the top of the hour, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. Let me just check what else is happening. Anything pop up in sports? Yeah, I'm curious to read this article about Lamar Jackson. Yeah, Lamar wasn't himself in 2025. What? All right, he was hurt, but did something else go on behind the scenes that we're unaware of? I mean, I don't know, but we're that close to winning the AFC North and moving on to the playoffs. Yeah, I'll save that. Yeah, that's about it there. All right. Thank you, Toppers. All right, people, I guess that'll do it. Another episode just about in the books. As always, thank you much for stopping by, carving out personal time out of your day to listen to what it is they have to say in the toy department of life called sports. And if you haven't done so, which I'm sure you have, a lot of you, of course, watching here live, please subscribe, rate, review, Apple, Spotify. Of course, here, subscribe on the YouTube channel at JAYREELZ. Goes a long way to increase the visibility of this podcast, this platform, this channel, with all the others that are out there. So if you could do that, spread the word. This is independent sports analysis content at its finest. No clickbait, no rage bait, as you know. Just true, passionate sports talk made by a sports fan for you guys and gals, a sports fan. You already know. And if you haven't subscribed, one more time, I'd appreciate it if you go ahead and do so. And if you want to hit me up with any questions, comments, suggestions, you could do so at the following on my social media platforms: on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JAYREELZ podcast, or just JAYREELZ on Instagram. Twitter, JAYREELZ1, just a number. Twitch, JAYREELZ1, just a number, or the old-fashioned way, the JAYREELZ podcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals with any questions, comments, suggestions, and the like, because whether you do or do not know, there's what I love to do, people. It's in the blood, it's in the DNA, as I like to say, talking sports since birth. Because where else are you going to get all these different topics, all these different sports in one podcast, a little bit over an hour, and then they go back and forth to talk about it? I'm waiting. Still waiting. Because as long as I sit in front of this camera and microphone, I promise that I will deliver nothing but passion, fire, energy, fury with my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, the JAYREELZ podcast always comes correct, directed, in full effect. From the South Bronx, the Southeast, the South End, to the South Pacific, and all points beyond. Peace, love, and God bless everybody. And until next time on the JAYREELZ podcast, on the flip, baby. And Toppers, yes, you have a good one too. Anybody else out there, have a good one as well. Always love the support. Always love that you contribute, participate to the cause. Truly appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. And as I mentioned before, until next time, on the flip.